Wow, look at all these games I could help fund. So many games, so many opportunities. Let's check out some recent ones. Wow, the dice game. That's a good name there. Aw, sick promo pig, dude. Man, I should get some 6-year-old to do some concept art for my Kickstarter too. This is a simple fantasy-themed tabletop RPG using a D6 system. The goal of the game is to defeat the final boss, put simply. I don't know, it doesn't sound so simple to me, dude. I think you're underestimating this a bit. Risks and challenges. The biggest risk and challenge is me completing this game on my own. This is my first go at it and it will most likely have its bumps along the way. I'm prepared to see this to the end though. I also have a few people willing to help. But wait, didn't you say— Oh hey YouTube! The game! An RPG game where you, as a socially awkward teenager, had to pay for your dad's brain operation by making YouTube videos. Oh dear. This guy doesn't know about the apocalypse, does he? Life, a story about fear and death. I don't think that's what life is. A survival horror game inspired by games like Silent Hill in a low poly style. Man, these guys are so spooked about this game, they forgot to capitalize the H in Hill. Oh, look at this. If you pledge $300 or more, you get a special thank email, exclusive wallpaper with a dedication for you, a DRM-free copy of Life, your name it— Wait, DRM-free? What, are you putting Securom in this thing? Who the hell uses DRM in 2017? Are you fucking crazy? I don't like any of this. I want to look at something fun. Something creative. Something that may or may not be trying to revitalize an outdated genre that probably won't translate well to the modern age. Well, what's this thing? Oh, it's already been funded. But as you can tell, my wallet needs to lose some weight, and it looks like buying this thing is the only way to make that happen. Huh. Yeah, let's talk about this. So yeah, crowdfunding in video games is certainly popular amongst quite a many folks, isn't it? From business executives to up-and-coming startup developers to even the common folk, crowdfunding has provided an interesting way to get your product funded without the hassle and pickiness of those pesky angel investors. But as I just cringily, unnecessarily, and obnoxiously pointed out, there's a lot of shit campaigns out there. And lately the practice seems to have been getting an even larger bad rap than before. One of the most highly anticipated ones in recent memory was Playtonic's return to goofy 3D mascot collectathon platforming Yooka Laylee, which came out last April after a very successful crowdfunding campaign and 2 or so years of development. However, I've been seeing a lot of people lamenting the whole thing and vigorously comparing it to another highly anticipated but ultimately disappointing crowdfunding game, Mighty No. 9. Now, as you may know, I've already covered that game, and yeah, it was a massive train wreck filled with all sorts of developer mismanagement, unnecessary crowdfunding for related projects, bad PR and promotion, and the fact the game was actual trash. But I've been watching Yooka Laylee since its inception, and in regards to comparing the two, no, there's barely anything there beyond a surface level. So, while it's probably not relevant now, which never matters at all here, today's episode is dedicated to me trying to make a case for Yooka Laylee, and why it shouldn't be put on the same pedestal as Mighty No. 9's infamous debacle. Red Ash will take that honor when it gets released. Ha! Yooka Laylee's campaign launched on a presumably warm spring day in May 2015. Originally known as Project Yooka Laylee, it arrived after almost 3 years of teasers from the newly formed Playtonic Games. The team mostly consisted of former Rare developers like Chris Sutherland, Steve Mayles, and of course the great music man himself, Grant Kirkhope. Their ultimate goal was to create a spiritual successor to Rare's classic 3D platformer, Banjo-Kazooie, as well as a nod to the many 3D platformers of that era. This premise certainly isn't a bad idea, as while Rare is still around, their new owners at Microsoft have been keeping them busy with, well, different kinds of games. Considering this, the campaign struck a very large chord with the gaming community. I'm talking like an E-flat minor natural chord, the best chord there is. Playtonic only asked for £175,000 to help fund the thing, and ended up getting $1 million in less than 24 hours, making this campaign the fastest to reach that amount, at the time. Now, I know what you're thinking, yes I have that ability, I don't know why you think otherwise. Isn't this exactly what happened with Mighty No. 9? And yeah, it is. And it's happened quite a few times before that and since then. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug. You inject that shit in your campaign, and everyone will be wanting to take a hit. Sure, it doesn't always take effect. You can ask Dennis Dyack and Peter about that. but it's a good way to attract an audience. That said, it doesn't doom the game to fail from the start, though conversely, it doesn't guarantee success either. Still, with such a large amount of cash built up and the subsequent and significant hype from the community, expectations for this thing would inevitably be quite high. By the end of the campaign, Playtonic netted over £2 million from 73,000 backers, hitting all their stretch goals in the process, and with some publishing help from the Worms folks over at Team 17, yep, they're popping up in this show again, they plan to release Yooka Laylee in October of 2016 for all major computer types and major console types, the console versions being worked on by Team 17 and everything else developed in-house at Playtonic. Now the team went out to make it to release with these expectations in tow, knowing that any major screw-up from henceforth could do some serious damage to their reputation and, more importantly, impact potential sales for their product. So, since we're comparing this campaign to Shitey Dumber Cry's campaign, how did Yooka Laylee fare for the next 2 years? Well, I can say with confidence, as well as through this convenient megaphone, infinitely better! Really, their campaign went pretty smooth for a while. They gave out plenty of updates about the game, especially with reward tiers, gave out interviews about the content and development, did some fun stuff along the way, like give out the game in 64 style, including an instruction manual and a replica 64-bit cartridge that's actually a flash drive, and even Shovel Knight made into the game. They even offered a playable demo for backers about a year after the campaign, a self-contained toy box of sorts. It was well received and gave a lot of players exactly what they were promised, the look and feel of a good old late 90s 3D platformer, the ones these guys were so well known for. This isn't all to say the campaign was perfect, however. From then until release, there were actually quite a few hiccups in the process, albeit in my eyes, not quite to the intensity of White Tea Come or Shine. Jeez, I could go all day with this. The first bump occurred in June 2016, when Playtonic announced they'd be delaying the game to Q1 of 2017 in order to polish it further. Now before you all start crying foul again, yes, I can tell you we're going to do that, stop doubting me. Game delays happen all the flippin' time, and keep in mind this was only the first and only one for Yooka Laylee. I shouldn't also have to remind you that the other candidate had several of them, as well as mismanagement, shady side projects, shit PR, and a trash end product. I'm not going to linger on this too much though, because there were bigger issues ahead for Playtonic. 6 months later, the company announced a definitive release for the game, and said it would be out on April 11th, 2017. However, that announcement came with an unfortunate addendum. The Wii U version of the game was being cancelled in favor of Nintendo's then newly announced Switch console/handheld hybrid thing. The company cited unforeseen technical issues as the cause, and reassured its audience that it had nothing to do with the console's poor market performance. I kinda doubt that sentiment. Okay, no, I don't believe that crap at all. But I can definitely see their logic in ditching the Wii U. Thankfully, they offered full refunds to those who wanted the Wii U version, or the choice of moving to any other platform at no additional cost. And aside from some anger from Nintendo fans, ranging from completely reasonable to what the hell are you on and can I please have some, most of the community really didn't give a shit about this. But if you think that's the end of Playtonic's woes, then let's mosey on over a few more months. A setting. It's only a few weeks before Yooka Laylee hits the market, and just when things seem like they can't go wrong, a small voice appears out of the nether regions of some far-off area, and it proudly proclaims, "Eh, bada bing, bada boom, get that black cat out of my room!" Yep, it's that time, folks. Prepare your booties. So, up until now, it seems like the supposed similarities with this and 90s Slumber Time kept popping up, but I guarantee you, there ain't no comparison between the two here. Okay, well there kinda is, but I mostly mean in the way it started. So, Playtonic announced in late March of 2017 that famed YouTuber JonTron, who had done a voiceover for the game, would be removed from Yooka Laylee as of a result of his also famed, but for a completely different reason, appearance on a Twitch livestream hosted by some dude called Destiny, in which the two debated each other about race and immigration. And in said debate, Mr. Jonathan Jafari said some interesting words and phrases about the topic at hand. Now, this is a controversy in and of itself, but that's not the focus here. Like with the previous episode, I ultimately don't care about whether or not they should have taken the guy out, and I'm not going to say what I would have done because that's just opening another giant can of worms that I don't want to deal with, but my opinion means jack shit right now because this almost turned Yooka Laylee into a massive shitfest. At first, things were calm, as Mr. Jafari himself took the news seemingly well. But then things started falling apart outside of that circle. The incident was still quite the buzz on ye olde social media, and of course a number of people started asking for refunds and canceling pre-orders for this apparent atrocity. I assume it was for the usual, "it's the fucking principle" stuff, but really this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. A whole console version cancellation? Of course that would deserve a refund, or likewise because it'd just be a waste of money otherwise. But asking for refunds merely because some famous dude's voice was removed from the game because said famous dude says some incredibly repulsive bullshit, unless the removal affected the game's quality in any significant way, I find doing that rather silly. But if you think I'm being harsh, it's not like the PR from either Team 17 or Playtonic were making the situation any better. I swear to God I was joking in that video, guys. I did not call this. Fellas, I understand you don't have to offer refunds or anything of the sort for this situation, but could you say so in a less aggressive way, please? Also, could you keep the social media smugness to a minimum at this time as well? I mean, I usually find smugness hilarious, but you guys are really just adding more fuel to the fire at this point. Also, this was the thing that was similar to Slightly Number Fine, okay, I'm gonna stop with that, as it also faced PR troubles in the later stages of its shitfest, as well as mismanagement, shady projects, etc, etc. PR troubles I didn't cover in the original video because, well, I actually didn't know about it. Still, reading up on the thing, I doubt it would have contributed much to the poor quality of the final product, which had a lot more problems on its hands than apparent social justice agendas. Likewise, Yooka Laylee wasn't going to completely fall apart just because of some PR nonsense, and considering this was the largest controversy that came out of it, which as with most controversies blew over rather quickly, I can say with more confidence and an even bigger megaphone, the campaign was going a million times better than Mighty Number 9! Still, things weren't over just yet, because now we had to deal with what actually matters in any crowdfunding project. How the game turned out. Yep, we're bringing out the pretentious gaming critic hat once again, but we're doing the review a tad differently this time. I have played the game quite extensively, but my super powerful 3-year-old gaming laptop isn't quite as powerful as it used to be, and the usual method of recording the gameplay went a bit haywire. So instead we're reviewing the game zero punctuation style. This route could give me less credibility, but considering I've been aping his video style for the past 2.5 years, it was only a matter of time before I did it for the game review sections as well. This could be a one-off, this could be a new direction, who knows, we'll see how things pan out. For now, let's just talk about the game and how a worthless individual like myself feels about it. Now, having never played Banjo-Kazooie... oh, great. Everyone left. Well, fuck it then, let's just talk about Zero Escape again. So, yeah, that last game though, yeah, I still like it, but honestly, in retrospect, it probably isn't that great. Having never played Banjo-Kazooie, I don't feel too inclined to say I know exactly what I'm talking about in regards to how the two compare. And as such, I'll mostly be talking about how the game stands up on its own merits. With that out of the way, what did I think of Yooka Laylee? Yeah, it's not bad. I may even go as far to say that I like it. Quite a lot. But let's not get too far ahead. What the fuck are you doing in this game? Well, you play as two non-specific animal buddies, a calm and reasonable chameleon named Yooka, and an immature snot-nosed bat, named Laylee. There's a villain by the name of Capital B who's out to steal and harness the power of literature in order to take over the world. And you need to stop him and his cronies by collecting an arbitrary number of collectibles called pages. Golden smiling book pages that would probably, definitely, 100% feel the pain of someone ripping it in half if they were to do so. That's not implying anything, I just wanted something dark there for the sake of it. The above could pretty much be a lie though, because all in all, the game couldn't get two shits about narrative. Or anything really for that matter. You see, the fourth wall is just a mere concept in this world that no one has ever heard of, and probably doesn't exist at all. Every character in one way or another constantly references the fact that this whole fiasco is, indeed, a video game. And usually they take great pride in how things were back then compared to how they are now. This is something that could get old incredibly fast, and yeah, it does. But I kinda admire just how little of a fuck this game gives. It's like an amalgamation of all those abrasively arrogant social media accounts that either exist for the purpose of pissing people off, or they're like that in reality, but it's still pretty funny regardless. I wouldn't say it's always hitting the mark, but I still find it pretty amusing. This approach is a bit dangerous though, because it also puts a heavier reliance and focus on pretty much everything else. So if the game is shit, the fact that it makes fun of itself would ultimately be worthless. On that note, let's talk about the everything else. Gameplay wise, it's rather standard 3D platforming fare, of course reminiscent of those ye old late 90s ones. There are 5 worlds located in the in-game hub world, all of which need to be accessed by either finding them or obtaining the right moves needed in order to find them. These moves vary from rolling around to jumping up to the heavens to just straight up flying. You have yourself a health and power meter to keep yourself in check though, which raised red flags for me instantly, but luckily nothing bad happens if you run out of power, and if you die you just get sent back to somewhere within the world. So that's nice. In between getting plenty of bitches and dough, you'll be using your sweet moves to get shit required to progress in the game. Within each of these worlds are an endless variety of collectibles. Your standard ones called quills, which can be used to purchase new moves, the pages, which are needed to unlock new worlds in order to make the aforementioned progression, or even expand previous worlds so you can get even more stuff in them, and then there are special collectibles to get too, which can do basic stuff like extend your health and power meter, unlock special perks called tonics, allow you to transform into something that'll help you get through the world, or let you play so-called retro games for more pages. Trust me, it's not too complicated. In fact, one could assume that's all there is to Yooka Laylee besides a near overdose of nostalgia. But honestly, I found the gameplay rather pleasant. Going around in each world and looking for things, whether I was just starting out or going back for shit I missed out on, is quite relaxing. It sounds strange, but that's honestly how I felt 90% of the time, and what maybe helped that was the freedom the level design offered, as you can pretty much get onto any platform your heart so desires, even if you're not supposed to be there. Despite this, there is a feel of unpolished to the gameplay though, as the controls are pretty slippery, the camera's definitely not your best friend, and there are some parts where I'm baffled that they went unnoticed by the developers, the most offensive one being enemies coming near you during NPC interactions and getting a cheap shot as soon as the conversation is over. Still, I can't exactly recall any instances of frustration akin to the ones I got from Mighty No. 9 or Revolution 60, and even when there was frustration, there was always more than enough stuff in here that motivated me to keep playing. It performs well too, though I wish my gaming laptop was able to reach a consistent 60 FPS with this thing because I know it can do that with the right setup, but, well, I don't have the right setup. The game also has quite a lot of visual flair. Good character design, good lighting, good animation, and lots of personality, which is probably the most impressive aspect. Every character is beaming with personality and visual quirks that I love to death. And sure, ice worlds, swamp worlds, and casino worlds aren't exactly new or exciting concepts, but the variety and detail contained within the worlds is very nice. And I just love how expressionable the characters are, especially with Capital B, who's almost always grinning with glee until something fucks up and he looks genuinely pissed. I mean, yeah, not every character design is great. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at the tonic lady, goddamn. And it does look a bit on the archaic side compared to everything else out now, but I think the visual style is unique and attractive enough so it can hold up well beyond its release. I'm not as crazy about the sound design though. The music is great, I'll admit that. Grant Kirkhope and the others, goddamn David Wise too, jeez. They all do a great job as per usual, bringing in that appealingly synthetic style. But everything else is kinda subpar. Sound effects are a mixed bag, with some fitting and distinct, like the item collecting sounds, while others are too tinny or too squeaky or too dull to work properly. And god, those voice clips. I know this is how they did it before with the constantly repeating but differently pitched gibberish sounds and stuff, but the noises they recorded for this range from tolerable to goddamn irritating. And I think the tempo of it is just a bit too slow, which really works against it. It's a good thing you can fix that stuff in the settings, but still, I'm not a fan of these sounds. And since we're bringing out the flaws now, let's mention a few more. The minigames offered here that give you more pages if you successfully complete them are mostly garbage. The minecart sections are god-awful, the shooting sections are pretty bland, and the retro games that Rextro lets us play should have stayed in the past where they belong. Though I still love that adorable fucker, he's too low poly to hate. The only ones that were slightly above garbage were the ring challenges, but even then it's just straight up platforming. And while I like the look of the game, there's a certain lack of visual information that kinda harms and almost halts progression at points. Considering the amount of hazards, I would have appreciated if there was a bit more indication on how to determine what is and what isn't a hazard. I also would have appreciated if there were better indication on what you need to do with certain puzzles as well, because that can get confusing real fast. Still, all these flaws weren't deal breakers for me, even though they brought down the overall quality. But the game's biggest issue, the one that truly prevents me from saying it's a great game, is such. It's too big for its own good. To be fair, this isn't the same it's too big for its own good kind of problem that Rev 60 had, which was mostly on a narrative and world building level. No, what I mean is that the game, specifically the worlds, are literally too big. It's impressive in scope and, again, looks pretty, but I don't think the developers put in enough stuff to not make these worlds feel kinda empty and exploring them kinda tedious. The lack of indication doesn't help matters, and sometimes going back to a world to find the last 2 or 3 things you missed out on can be kind of intimidating, especially if you're not familiar with the layout of it by now. I'm being serious when I say a map could have helped significantly. Yeah, I know the other games didn't have or really even need one, but with worlds these large, it really would have helped a lot. Still, while it has its flaws, I still really liked Yooka Laylee in the end, and it's easily the best game we've reviewed on this show to date. But when it comes to other folks' thoughts on the game, well, that's a completely different story. With all the above taken into account, I think it's safe to say that Yooka Laylee had a good enough shot at being a hit rather than arriving to the masses DOA, despite it almost turning into a shit show with the JonTron stuff. But when it came to critical analysis, things got a bit complicated. Going by numbers alone, while Yooka Laylee did garner more critical acclaim than Mighty No. 9, reviews were still heavily mixed all across the boards. There were those that adored the game to pieces, but there were also those that loathed it to death. Most of them seemed to agree that it was rather faithful to the games that inspired it, but whether or not that's a good thing is pretty much up for debate. As for the consumers, well, things seemed even more mixed. I've seen plenty of hot takes about the game from people I follow on social media, with again some enjoying it and others hating it, and it seems that's how it is for everyone else who's experienced it so far too. It's unfortunate that there was a notable amount of disappointment stemming from the community, but it doesn't seem that there was as much disappointment than with Mighty No. 9, and at least the game has been selling better than that crap hole too. As for everything else up until now, well, nothing in terms of controversy has gone down. No anime fan on prom night or better than nothing kinds of dealios, and no major problems during release. Although the Xbone version was kinda screwed up in the beginning, and we still have yet to see a definitive release date for the Switch version too. However, and this occurred during the writing for this episode, so thanks a lot Playtonic, the game has since seen a massive patch for the PC, with consoles soon to come, and it fixed or added in quite a lot of stuff, which makes me wonder if they rushed the initial product out a bit too soon. And look, I'm not a fan of this kind of practice, patching out major flaws or patching in necessary stuff with video games, no matter when the patch gets out or how much stuff it actually does. Not only does it reflect poorly on the developer for obvious reasons, but it also fucks with launch reviews and critical perception too. Let me put it this way, if a broken game is reviewed, a review for it says it's broken, and then the dev fixes the brokenness later, the review may be considered inaccurate and invalid. And while it can serve as a reminder for the game's previous brokenness, this shit is both troublesome for reviewers and disrespectful to reviewing culture. Still, there are more insulting examples of this than Yooka Laylee, just look at Mass Effect Andromeda and almost every Ubisoft game since 2013, but I don't like it, and it makes me yearn for the days when games were actually finished properly. What the hell ever happened to just waiting till the thing's fucking complete so there's no risk of this crap happening? Alright, capitalism. Anyway, I think that should do it for this lengthy as hell episode, so yeah. Overall, the campaign, the game, the aftermath, it was all a cakewalk for Yooka Laylee compared to the gut-punching death trap that is Mighty No. 9. The game itself I found to be enjoyable too, but if you're planning to play it, I'd be relatively cautious given the above, and $40 is not a very good asking price. Still, while it's heavily flawed, I liked Yooka Laylee a lot more than I expected, and a lot more than those disappointed by it. As for the campaign, yeah, it wasn't perfect, I'd even hesitate to call it successful, but it didn't have most of the shit Inafune and friends pulled, which again, well, yeah, you should already know by now. And anyone who's still comparing the two and saying they're the exact same can go tongue kiss a chameleon. Analyzing everything, I would call Yooka Laylee as a crowdfunding campaign a small success. Not a smash hit that should serve for future crowdfunding games to follow, but something that turned out fairly well in the end despite problems along the way. And I'm really interested to see what Playtonic is going to be doing from here on out. In the meantime, to cap this off, let's talk business. Say whatever you want about the practice of crowdfunding, how bad it is, how good it is, the great examples of it, the terrible examples of it. I have plenty of thoughts about the damn thing too. But you cannot deny that it is a viable business method no matter how much of it is incorporated in product development. And saying that the practice is going to die out, especially at this stage, is absolutely ridiculous. While we have seen so many failed and disappointing campaigns, and even some that turned out to be massive scams, the practice is still going on strong, and it's going to be for quite a long time. So when people say that Bloodstained Ritual of the Night or Shenmue 3 or hell, Psychonauts 2 will be what determines the fate of crowdfunding in video games, I say, A, that's bullshit. B, they have the money anyway, so whether or not the end product is good, it's been proven that this shit works. And C, even if you vow to never invest in crowdfunding games again, there are still more than enough people who will, cause again, this shit works. Practicality is something that seems to be slipping many folks' minds in regards to stuff like this, and hell just in general. And that's all I gotta say for now. I've got a lot more important things to do than talk about this crap any longer, like prepare for the inevitable bashing of Red Ash. Oh, that's gonna be a lot of fun. Peace out.